Hey, everybody. Welcome to another American Baitworks Live. I've got a new guy on the show tonight that's never been on here before, but this guy has a pretty storied past north of the border, or at least for us watching in the States north of the border. I've got Adam Howell with us tonight. And Adam won, if I get this right, you won the Team of the Year in the Renegade Bass Trail this year. Is that right?
Yeah, I won it with my partner Kyle Healy.
Dude, that's kind of a big deal. I got to fish around a lot of you guys up there, not this past year, but the year before at the Thousand Islands Open. I know that's not part of it, but it's run by all the same people and everything. So I got to fish around a lot of you guys. Absolutely a group of hammers. I mean, guys that you think, oh, they only have open water up there for 7 months out of the year, and they make the most of it. I'm telling you guys, these guys are a bunch of sticks. But we're going to talk about some of that team of the year and how some of the tournaments went. I want to talk to Adam a little bit about that kind of stuff. We're also going to break down some ice fishing stuff. So Adam, you're a pretty astute ice fisherman too, correct?
Yeah, actually, ice fishing is kind of really what got me into bass fishing. When I was young, growing up, I didn't have a boat, so I really unless I was relying on my uncles to go out fishing. Uh, Ice season, you can pretty much go anywhere you want on the lake, and I mean, ice fishing pretty much grew me into the angler I am now because I learned so much about mapping, just basically different species and building the confidence to find fish on my own.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I thought was so interesting. Some of the other guys that we've had on the show lately, talking about ice fishing, is how you guys get on your snow machines and you actually have a graph up there with the contour lines on it. And literally, it's almost like being out there in a boat. Like you're following the contour lines, drilling some holes, putting the transducer down there, looking at your graph, seeing that like that. I mean, like obviously it makes sense to me, but it's just a different way of going about it. But that is so neat that you can actually, do that, but it makes perfect sense. You follow the same kind of lines, points, drop off, same kind of stuff, weed beds, all that kind of stuff. It's just through the ice.
And
So
one of the cool bonuses too is, in a boat, you maybe throw two other guys in it. You go out on the ice, you can go with 10 guys if you want. You go out as a huge group, you can break down lakes faster, you name it. It's a good time.
So what is the lake that I would guess we call it your home lake, or the lake that you ice fish most often?
Oh, that's a tough one because Ottawa is kind of like a border town in a way,
Yeah.
which it's very unique. It's an amazing place to ice fish. It's an amazing place to visit and ice fish. Right in Ottawa downtown is the Ottawa River. The other side is Quebec, and they have total different regulations. You can actually fish bass in the wintertime there. It's open, and then you have the other side of us down south, 45 minutes away, it's the States, it's New York, got the St. Lawrence River. So Ottawa is really, I wouldn't say there's like a specific lake. We got the Rideau systems, we got the Ottawa River, we got the St. Lawrence River, we got Lake Ontario, we have a ton of finger lakes. I mean, there's just so many places to fish here. I really couldn't name one. But I mean, if you want to say a famous place, you're going to say the St. Lawrence River or the Ottawa River.
Right. Oddly Florida, but I got a lot of friends up in that part of the world, and I have fished the Ottawa River. I've fished the whole Rideau chain. I've fished Dog Lake. I've fished Big Rideau. All of those, or not all of them, but some of them. Of course, I fished the St. Lawrence River a lot. What a lot of people might not know is the very first pro event I ever fished. I think it was probably 1999, 1998, maybe 97. I don't remember exactly what. But the very first professional tournament I ever fished was on the St. Lawrence River. So that's kind of where my debut, and I don't want to say it was a big professional tournament. It was what would be now the Bassmaster Opens. But yeah, that's where I fished my first big tournament. So the St. Lawrence River is always kind of a soft spot for me, and I just love absolutely love going up there and catching those giant smallmouth. You know, now I've never been up there on what we're talking about, going out on the hard water and fishing, and I was even talking about that a little bit in the last couple of American Baitworks lives that we've done. It's like I've gotten interested in it. Like it's some I've like probably 3 or 4 times in my life. But like I said, it's just now that we've been talking about it, thinking about it, and hearing how you guys do it, and it's just absolutely cool, you know, to be able to do that stuff. So we got a couple people coming in already. Let's see. The very first comment, Chuck says, "Shoot your bow." I haven't done that lately, Chuck. You're right. I should do that more often. Brian says hello from Rockledge, just straight up the street. Josh says hey. Dylan, same thing. Tony Carter, what's up, buddy? We are gonna have a fun show with Adam tonight. There's Tony Slovack. I just fished with him today, so he just got out of the boat. Now we're already on here. But anyway, so Adam, tell me a little bit about. You talked about all the lakes around that you can ice fish, and like I said, I've fished all the same lakes in summertime. Which one is your favorite?
That's a fun one. Before I get into what my favorite is, I love to trophy fish. That's my biggest thing. I love big walleye, big lake trout. I like splake. I like whitefish, and I want the biggest ones I could find. And when I'm looking at a lake and I'm looking for a place to fish, I always look at bait. I'm always looking to see if there's smelt, herring, gobies, cisco, or alewife in the lake. And typically, if they have any of that bait, you're going to get big fish in those lakes. Lake Ontario towards the Bay of Quinte, that's probably one of my favorite areas. And a couple of the back lakes back home that are filled with smelt back here, those are my favorite as well. Anything if I could drill a hole and I can catch walleye and lake trout out of the same hole, I mean, that's as good as it gets to me.
So the Bay of Quinte has always been. I mean, it's storied for just giant walleye. You know that yeah. That's the place if you want to go catch big walleye. But we've been talking ice fishing a little bit lately, as I said, and you mentioned splake. I haven't heard anybody else mention splake, and I'm not 100%. I think I have an idea, but explain to me what a splake is.
It's just a cross between brook trout and a lake trout. That's pretty much it. A speckle or a lake trout, whatever you want to call it. And
I didn't know it was a cross. I thought it was some kind of brook trout, so I didn't know it was actually a cross between the two. But that makes
yeah. They don't spawn. They don't reproduce. They're basically just stocked from the hatcheries and that. And I mean, if you fish brook trout, they're kind of like, in a way, like smallmouth. They love shallow water sometimes, and they're like cats. They're like running 1,000 miles an hour after your bait. They love jerk baits and stuff like that. And you got lake trout too, which are just absolutely suicidal, and they love deep water. I mean, you mix the two of them together, it's just this absolute crazy fish. And but I mean, once again, I'm always looking for the biggest splake. And we're very lucky. We're home to a lot of big splake in our area. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. I'm not going to tell them lake names or anything like that. But there's tons of opportunity to fish splake down here. We got big everything. I mean, like we were just talking about the Bay of Quinte, and it's famous for walleye. The St. Lawrence River, the New York State record, was just caught there 2 springs ago. It was like 17.9 pounds. And that was out of Ogdensburg, which is just below Waddington.
Oh, yeah. All of those. So to put it in an easy term, so a splake will get bigger than a brook trout, but doesn't get as big as a lake trout can get.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know what's in the middle.
Yeah, I don't know what the record is. It might be like close to 20 pounds or something like that. But I mean, if you're catching 5-pound splake, like those are great size splake, and they're a ton of fun. And if they're in the back lakes, they're great eating too.
Oh, that's awesome. We got a question for you, Adam, from John. He says, Adam, have you ever fished carp through the ice?
No.
People are into fishing for carp, like, but there's some places where they're dead serious about fishing for old bugle lip.
No, I've never ever targeted them. Sometimes when you're fishing like crappie and stuff like that, you get the odd carp. But no, I've never targeted carp through the ice. They're normally pretty dormant in the wintertime. I don't know if they like hibernate. They almost sit still or they barely move. Or yeah, no, I don't target carp.
Okay, we got Dan says greetings from St. Augustine. That's just right up the street. Alex says, how's that whiskey drink tasting, JT? It's not whiskey, it's Miller Lite. Alex says Splake can be mad aggressive, as you said. Absolutely. That sounds like that would be a fun. And you know, like just from my experience from fishing in some lakes that have some stock trout down south, stuff like that, like Bull Shoals, Beaver Lake in Arkansas, some of those tournament lakes that I fished a lot of tournaments on. When throwing a jerkbait, we would catch some of those, stocked rainbow trout and stuff like that they have in those lakes. And you don't have a bass on them. You know what I mean? Like they fight hard, but it's completely different feel.
Yeah, yeah.
And sometimes those trout, like at least those rainbows, and I'm just referencing from my personal experience. Like at some point during the fight, they'll spin a little bit like a catfish spins. But it's not like bulldogging down like a catfish, but it's not really jumping either. It's kind of up in the water column, but it's spinning. And after you catch a couple, you're like, that's another trout. Like you could tell just by how it fought. But I mean, they pulled. Like the ones I caught, they weren't great big ones, maybe 2-pounders. But I mean, like they were getting after it. Like they were pulling pretty hard. Let's hit a couple more of these. We got a lot of comments coming in. Luke says, JT, I'm headed to Headwaters all weekend. Lucky you. It is going to be good. Corey says, what's up?
Yeti.
Yeah. Let's see. So Danny, here's a question for you, Adam. Danny says, what lures do you use for splake?
So again, coming down to like what kind of baits in the lake. If it's like an alewife, or a smelt style lake with like suspended bait, I'm gonna use a big flashy bait. I love to use a blade bait. Freedom actually makes a Freedom blade bait. I actually have it right here. This is one of my favorite baits, hands down. One of the sweet things about using a blade bait like that is, I mean, when you rip jig that, they're going to see that flash from a mile away. And anybody who fishes lake trout, splake, or even specks through the ice, they know those fish come in like 1,000 miles an hour, and you kind of got to play a yo-yo game with them up and down. Having a heavier bait and being able to drop it down to them when they turn back makes a huge difference.
And you're talking about you're watching them on your depth finder, on your graph.
Yeah, on my flasher, yeah.
Being able to quickly get down to it, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. We've had a lot of discussion in the last couple of weeks about that Freedom blade bait in particular. Some of the guys are like, if you can show it to us and we'll see, there's a nose hook on it as well as the treble hook on the back. I see the one you have the nose hook on it. Some of the guys are taking that off. What's your opinion, Adam?
100% taking it off through the ice. It depends, though. It all depends. Now, the whole entire point of the nose hook is if you want to bank this thing off the bottom, you put it on the back hole here for the snap. This bait's going to lean down. It's going to hit bottom. It's not going to pick up anything, and it's going to stir up a lot of mud. And if you're trying to get that reaction, whether it's from walleye, whitefish, or whatever it is, it's a great idea. I mean, to have it rigged like that. But personally, when you're fishing like lake trout or splake or anything like that, those fish are coming in so fast. You want a nice treble hook on the bottom. They're probably just going to swat at it, thrash at it, whatever it is. That's how I prefer to rig it. And not only that, too, sometimes with the nose hook, not all the time, but sometimes it's easier to get the bait caught on the edge of the ice hole with the nose hook, and you're going to shake that fish off. So I try to avoid that.
That makes perfect sense. If you think about that, that hole, and of course your line's going to be, as the fish is fighting all around, that line's going to be running around that. So when you would come up, I guess they could grab on the side of it. So that's a good point. Let's get out through here. Rick says, "How is the fishing in Lake Placid? Looking to buy something." Rick, I fished over there a handful of times. I have had some really good trips over there, but I don't like 2.5 hours for me. I really don't know a whole lot about that. Christopher says, "Yo, Chris in the house. Bring on summer. Sorry, you winter lovers." It felt like summer in Palm Bay today. It was really warm today, but we're getting a big change in that. Chris, here's one for you, Adam. Chris says, "Any tips for staying safe on the ice? We've recently lost a young angler in the community here. I'm sorry to hear that. And any must-haves when you're exploring the ice? What kind of stuff do you do, Adam, to try to stay safe out there?"
So actually, right now in the Ottawa area, it's a horrible time for ice. Like, we really haven't been building ice like we normally do at this time of the year. And there's actually been a lot of people losing their lives and falling in as of recent. You got to have a spud bar. I've been ice fishing since I was a kid, and I've gone out on some pretty thin ice, and you learn from mistakes and stuff like that in the past. But anybody who tells me, you're crazy for going out on thin ice, I always ask them. I say, "Do you own a spud bar?" If they tell me no, I think they're far more crazier than me. When you go out and you buy a spud bar, you should have a spud bar. If you have a float suit, you wear your float suit. You should have ice picks on you to get yourself out of the ice, and you should always have a buddy and maybe even a rope. So when you go out with a spud bar and you're walking and you give that spud bar a whack on the ice, typically for me, myself, I notice I lose about 2.5 inches of ice to 3 inches on every spud hit. You should check yourself and figure out how much ice you're actually spudding. It depends on the weight of the bar or the type. But if you hit with that spud bar and it goes through the ice, you turn around. You don't keep walking. That ice is too thin. It's below 3 inches of ice, and I won't go out unless there's 3 inches of ice. Not only that, talking about going out and being on thin ice, I see like there's this trend with people now, and they're going out with spud bars and they hit it and it goes through, and then they give it a lighter hit and it doesn't go through, and they're kind of like, "Oh, I think that's safe enough." Maybe it is to you, but if you're out 200-300 yards offshore on the ice and you got some locals around or somebody who's just watching you, they're assuming in their head that it's safe out there.
That's a good point.
Yeah, you're putting somebody else's life at risk too. Now, yeah, they should go out with a spud bar. Yeah, they should take the proper precautions, but people don't do that. Wait for the ice to thicken up a little more and look out for others, not just yourself.
Cool. That's really good. And I'm going to assume, I don't know exactly what a spud bar is, but I can assume it's just like a bar with a pointed end on it that you're kind of measuring the toughness, or for lack of a better term.
Yeah, it's a giant ice chisel.
Okay, yeah. You're just poking it out in front of you as you're going, and just
and you give it a good hit. And if I hit it and it doesn't go all the way through, but if I pull it out and I see water, like it looks like it's pierced through the ice, I'm not going any further. And if you're walking it, I've lost a ton of spud bars ice fishing because I'd be walking. I think the ice is safe. I even got my wife with me or something, or a new ice fisherman, and my spud bar just goes right through out of my hands. I was comfortable. I would have kept walking. I didn't even put the wrap around my hand, nothing. That spud bar just went right through the ice to the bottom. It's gone. And you know what? Cost me $40. I lost my spud bar, but I saved my life potentially.
Yeah, exactly. So, and speaking of that, I want to go down here because we're on the subject of this. Danny says, "What floater suit do you guys like to use?"
Well, you know what? I bought a Helly Hansen like 10, 15 years ago, and a bunch of us all bought the Helly Hansen ones, and they're still in perfect shape. I know Mustang makes floater suits as well. They're phenomenal floater suits. They last. I mean, freaking the crab fishermen use them out in Alaska and that. But all the new ice companies that are coming out, whether it's like Clam, Striker, most of them have like built-in float suit jackets or bibs or pants or whatever it is. Just any type of floating device. But if you have a one piece, like it's nicer because if you do fall in and you have a two piece, chances are water's going to come up under your jacket. And with that one piece, you're probably, if you get out fast enough, just your wrist, maybe your neck area, and your feet are going to get wet.
Right. That's really cool, because that is one thing you have to make sure that you stay, as safe as you can out there. And it's funny, we've heard this, already this year too, is that there's a lot of ice up your way that's just not what it normally would be. We're working in on the end of January now, and we've heard it a bunch that the ice is just not what it normally is. So Alex says minnow spoons work great, and hammered works great too. Do you get into spoons much?
Oh yeah, I got way too much gear, but no such thing. Let's be honest. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I didn't start using the minnow spoon until the end of last season, and I'm a huge fan of it. I actually got one right here for anybody that hasn't seen it before. The really cool, there we go. The really cool, unique thing about this bait is it actually sits horizontal like this. And I know typical glide baits, they sit horizontal, but it's got a really big profile to it. So when you're looking up at that bait, typically you look at a spoon, it's sitting vertical. This bait sits horizontal, and it's just got that bigger profile. It looks like a bigger bait in the water. And like Alex is saying, it works great. The hammered one too, I think it's twice as thick. It's a little bit heavier, and it's just a new, different style of bait. Gives off a ton of flash. And I think they're pretty popular this year because they're tough to get a hold of.
So what you said they both work the hammered and the regular, and I've actually used that bait, and it that's from Freedom as well, and it really, like, it sachets when it goes down. Like, it's not just like like a regular spoon that hangs like this. When you jerk it, if you don't drop enough slack back to it to let it do that, if you don't have the feel for a spoon, it's hard to get the proper action out of a regular vertically hanging spoon if you don't know, like I said, when you snap it up, to quickly drop slack back to it so it can do that. That spoon from Freedom, you can still be on a mended line, and it'll still like I said, it sachets back and forth like it really does, and it's a super interesting bait to use. So let's see, we got Cody says, you know anything about fishing Thermocline?
Like, to me, a Thermocline, I think of like summertime lake trout and like bass. In the wintertime, not really. Like when you're ice fishing, I mean, the fish are all over the map. The lake trout, you'll catch them as shallow as 5 feet of water. So I don't really know if there's a Thermocline. I'd almost say, like, people up north, a lot of us will say the lake flips. And it seems like the fish just basically roam anywhere. It's like walleye in the summertime. Like, yeah, you can catch them shallower sometimes, but in the wintertime, you don't know if you're going to get them in 3 feet of water or you're going to get them in 60 feet of water. Same thing with the lake trout, like I was saying. Right, so right. I don't know. I don't know much about Thermoclines. I don't know if there really is one in the wintertime.
Yeah, that's too. And of course, you have way more experience through the ice than I do. But when you were talking about the lake flipping, I mean, we're typically talking about that in fall, right? Like, is that typically when you guys see that? So when I've seen like really, really stratified Thermoclines is mid and late summer, like when you're like down here in the south and you're dealing with really, really warm water. And not so much here where I live in Florida, but I spent 22 years on the tour, fishing all the big tournaments and everything. One of the biggest examples I can give you, and all these lakes do this if they don't have a lot of flow in them, like the Tennessee River they're flowing water through that thing all the time in the summer to keep, they're making power. Air conditioners and everything else is running. So they typically don't stratify like that. But some of the lakes like Lake Lanier, Lake Murray, places like that where the water temperature will get, high 80s. I've had times where you've seen like you can idle across the lake and start out on a point and you'll mark fish from the surface. And I'm not talking about bass, stripers, whatever, just, bait fish, whatever. You'll mark fish like from the surface to like 28 or 32 feet. And then you'll see it's just barren anything deeper than 28 or 32 feet, wherever that thermocline is. Like there's just nothing alive down there. But it's because there's no oxygen. And that's what a lot of people don't think about. They think, fish still have to have oxygen. They just breathe it through their gills through the water. They're not breathing it, like we do. But they still have to have oxygen. So that's really what a thermocline is where there's no oxygen. It's a line where there's no oxygen below a certain level. And like I said, those are the lakes where I've really seen it be obvious. And it's so obvious that you'll idle, like I said, you're graphing a point or something, and you idle out, and then you find yourself, you're just in, you're in 30, then you're in 40, then you're in 50 feet, then you're in 60 feet, then you're in 70 feet. You're out in the middle of the lake, still idling, and you can still see there's bait fish and stuff from the surface still to 28 feet, and there's just nothing down below that. So when that happens, most of the time, like I said, I'm not a biologist, but most of the time it's in summertime. You just make sure you don't fish any deeper than whatever that depth is, because there's not going to be anything or not much of anything down there. And if there is anything down there and there's not very much oxygen in the water down there, it's probably not going to be very active and wanting to chase your freedom spoon, more than likely. So let's hit a couple more of these. Christopher says global warming, less ice fishing, and a bass population explosion in Canada. I think you guys already have a serious bass population explosion in Canada.
We got a ton this way.
Alex comes back and says lakes flip in midwinter as well. I think I don't know about. I'm not up there, so yeah.
They could. It's not something I've really noticed or really talked to much guys about up here.
Yeah, like I said, that's kind of, as far as talking about in the wintertime, that's kind of out of my wheelhouse, if you will. So Tony says, awesome tip about hanging your bait. Most wouldn't think about that. I think he was talking about, we were talking about the freedom vibrating. Yeah, and with the hooks on the front of that. So that's a pretty cool deal. So let's move on here a little bit. So I want to talk, because we're already, the time goes flying by. I want to hear a little bit about, and this is just because I love this stuff. I like ice fishing too, but I want to hear a little bit about your team of the year win with RBT. I mean, give me just, obviously we don't have a lot of time, but give me just a little rundown of your season. What was your finishes? What did you catch them on in each event? What is there's 4 or 5 events on the schedule?
There's 5 events plus a classic.
Well, just give us a little bit of a rundown for each event, how you finished, just so we get an idea of what kind of finishes it took to beat everybody else. So rundown.
So basically, my partner Kyle Healy and I, we joined RBT 3 seasons ago, and we found actually amazing success in our first season. We won Rookie of the Year, and we ended up winning the Classic. And then it was kind of funny. Our second year being filmed, JP turned around and he says to me, "Oh, this is going to be your sophomore slump year." And it still wasn't. I think we finished the year with four top 10s out of 5 events. Came 4th for team of the year, but we never really got into the top 3. So coming into this season, Kyle and I, we always fish to win no matter what. We don't try and play a points game. We always want to win every event that we fish. And the first lake of the season was Dog Lake. So anybody that kind of knows us knows that in RBT we fish smallmouth a lot, and we're not really known as largemouth fishermen. But anybody that actually knows us growing up, we only fish largemouth. I didn't buy my first smallmouth rod until 2 years prior to RBT. We just became so obsessed and fascinated with smallmouth and trying to learn them. We just never turned the gear off.
Yeah.
So we went into Dog Lake. We knew that literally probably 70 out of the 80 teams were going to try and flip a jig like Lenny and Milfoil. We said we're not going to try and beat guys like that at their own game. Power fished. We were using chatterbaits, and yeah, we ended up getting the win. We started off the year on Dog Lake with a win, and we wanted that win real badly because Dog Lake was our worst finish ever in Renegade. So, out of everything we've done in Renegade, I don't know what it is about Dog Lake, but we said going into that event, we wanted the win. It was pretty much predominantly largemouth. We just wanted to prove the guys we could fish largemouth. So we got the win, and then it just didn't stop from there. The next lake was a double day, Big Rito. It's two separate events. You fish the Saturday as one event, the Sunday as another event, but it's on the same lake. We came fifth the first day, had a lot of heartbreak. We had a chance to potentially very easily come top three or win it, but we screwed that up. We were power fishing smallmouth in our comfort zone, and then we're throwing top waters and swim baits, and then the next day we finally got a little bit of redemption, got a third place, and then we went to actually one of our favorite places to fish for our fourth event. That was Lake St. Francis, and we love fishing there, but we're not very good there for some reason. We've got, I think, 2 top 10s there, but we can't seem to crack top 3. We saw the fish. We were staring at smallmouth in the shallows. We saw the fish to win it. Couldn't really get them to bite. And for the first time all year, we didn't let the fish tell us what to do. We were catching them out deep. We were catching them easily out deep, and we were getting the size we needed. We went out deep at like 1 o'clock with 3 hours left in the tournament. Pull up, do one drift, get a 4-pounder. So, this sucks. Let's go back shallow, because that's what we like to do. Went back shallow, came back at 30 minutes left in the tournament, called out all of our fish, and somehow salvaged our season with like a 20-somethingth place. And then we ended our year on Newborough Lake. And I don't know if many people know this, but Newborough Lake, we ended up weighing in 22 pounds, 22 and a half pounds on Newborough Lake, which is that's a really big bag for a Rito Lake. And on Newborough Lake, it's a big bag. We were on a pattern there for years, Kyle and I. Never lost the tournament at Newborough. Never lost.
Impressive.
And we came second. So Mike Vandenberg and John Ebers, they came in with 24 pounds. They deserved every inch of that. They absolutely smashed it. And then I think like third and second went from like 20 pounds to like 18. And then like to come top 10, you needed 15 pounds. It was insane. But we won Team of the Year. We broke the Century Club. We got over 100 pounds for the year. And, that's all we really cared about. And then we went on to the Classic. And, we battled with Lenny all year. He beat us. We beat him at Dog Lake. He came second. Then we, a couple events, he'd come above us, he'd come below. In Team of the Year, we got him, which was awesome. But then at the Classic, he got us. He got first place, and we got second place. But he won the boat.
Right. So how did you fish them? How did you catch your fish at the Classic, and where was it?
So the Classic was on the St. Lawrence River. Something I don't think a lot of people realize about the St. Lawrence River, they probably see videos about it and they hear it's like one of the best bass fisheries in the world, is that from one end of the St. Lawrence River to the other, you can almost cut it down into sections. Fish is completely different. I mean, completely different. The current changes and it sets up the fish totally different. And this year, that we fished Classic, it was a little bit more closer to Lake O, and Lake O was open. It was out of a town called Brockville, which is kind of in between Clayton and Ogdensburg. And what ended up happening was Kyle and I had never fished past Brockville. It was a whole new body of water to us. And we had to learn basically the St. Lawrence River all over again. And we only had 2 days of practice. We went into that event. We said, if we come top 30, we'll be blown away. And at the end of day one, we were pre-fishing out there. We were just looking for fish. And we saw on our 2D sonar, we started to see marks just cruising flats. And we started dropping in 30 feet of water on them with drifter minnows. And it was crazy because a lot of people thought we just got Panoptics for that event. And everybody thought we had Panoptics live scope all season long. We just got it for that event. We still didn't know how to use it, and we're still using our 2D dropping down on these fish. Like Bluebird Sky Day, St. Lawrence River is like super gin clear, 25 feet of water. We're still using our 2D, but we're just in an area that the fish were so unpressured. It was like we were laughing. You know, it was we had an hour and a half left. Kyle caught a 6.5 pounder. We won Big Class of the Year with that, and won free tires. And it just like, the next day we had a little bit of catastrophe happen. Our trolling motor broke, but you know, we could have done better. I don't think we ever would have caught Lenny and Jeff. They deserved it. And I think they still beat us by like 2.5, 3 pounds.
Yeah. So, that was an awesome event. I remember watching a little bit of the weigh in on that, and that was pretty cool. You guys have such amazing fisheries up there. All right, let's hit a couple more of these. Christopher says, JT talking back now. That's where it's at. Cody says, what are your top 3 techniques for smallmouth? There can be a lot of variables to that per situation, water clarity, wind, you know, like, but just hit us with 3.
Drop shot. You can never give up a drop shot or a tube or a Ned rig. I put those all in the same category. Top water. I don't know what it's about, like a big, loud top water, but you get winning fish with that. And a jerkbait. I've won so much money on a freaking jerkbait. It's insane. And I don't know what it is lately, like in a lot of tournament series and that. It's like people forgot to use it. Like people don't use it anymore. They're so into like Neds and other baits and stuff like that. The jerkbait the past couple of years has gone back to being an insane bait to use.
A small to me is he's almost like a cat, like a house cat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if a house cat's laying there and something moves across the floor really, really slow, and I'm going to say like with the bass, it's like if that bass is hungry and a Ned rig drags in front of him, he'll probably go over there and bite it. But if he's not hungry, but that jerkbait comes by and it's it's almost like he's like, I'm not hungry, but that thing's making me mad, and I'm gonna go crush it with my mouth.
Yeah,
it's like, and just like a cat, you know, you can sit there and tease a cat, then it'll get all jumpy and start coming after something, you know, and like I think a smallmouth is the same way. And I think that's why, just like you brought up, big top water works really good, jerkbait works really good. You know, it's amazing. But I would have to say, and luckily I didn't get to in 2020, but every year before that into the the late 90s, I've got to come up for at least one, if not several trips to get up to around the St. Lawrence River or Lake Champlain or any of them and you know, just get to fish smallmouth for a while. So I've got, you know, for somebody that's from Florida, I've got a fair amount of smallmouth, you know, techniques and stuff that I like to use. I've fished them a lot. I got, you know, and I've actually got several in the FLW tour and some of the other trails, you know, the old FLW tour, which is now the MLF Big Five. But I've got several top 10s. I've never had a win on smallmouth, but I've got several top 10s on smallmouth. So, you know, I just absolutely love, you know, catching those fish. And what you said, a big topwater, a jerkbait, and then you put it good. You really did. Instead of saying a tube, a drop shot, and a Ned rig, like, yeah, they're just all kind of the same. Like, that's if they're biting.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? If they're feeding, if they're
Yeah.
hungry, and the big top water. But what I would have to put in there is a spinnerbait.
I was gonna say a spinnerbait too because I love burning a spinnerbait for smallmouth. Love it.
I almost won a tournament. I think it was 2005 or 2006 or something like that. It was a back then FLW Everstart event on Lake Champlain, and I ended up I only caught like 18.5 pounds the last day, and one of the guys behind me came up. And I'm pretty sure I led for 3 days, and or at least two of the 4 days anyway. And every single one that I caught was on a 3/4 ounce spinnerbait, just throwing it out on these 7, 8, 9 foot deep flats and just reel it as fast as you can. And they were mad. Like
Yeah.
they hit it so hard. I had bruises all over my side from where they would hit it so hard that it would smack the butt of the rod into my side. And
Yeah.
just it was so. And you had to throw a 20-pound test, or they would hit it. Like I started out throwing like 14, and they would hit it so hard they would break the line. Like it's absolutely amazing. So, and those are those kind of skinny, longer Lake Champlain fish. I can't. Those St. Lawrence River fish that are short and thick. They're just tall. They're tall and broad. Those are even meaner. I mean, they just absolutely just smash it, man. That's just crazy.
It's super fun when you throw a spinnerbait and you take that cast and it's like you don't know how they do it, but your spinnerbait hits the water, you engage your reel, and it's like bang! It's like they just see it coming from the air, it hits the water, and it's just that explosive hit. I mean, that's you can't beat that sometimes.
That is it is a lot of fun. Let's see. Christopher says, JT, did you enjoy coming to Ontario as a Bass University pro when you attended the spring fishing and boat show in Mississauga a few years ago? Do look back, I like that. Yeah, man, that was awesome, and our whole, I'm still definitely a professor at Bass University. I just did some. We just did our first virtual one because of all this COVID stuff. We just did our first virtual one. It was myself, Bobby Lane, and John Cox. That was I was just humbled to just be in boxed in with those guys. Talk about some of the most amazing fishermen that have ever held a bait caster. And the three of us. Not myself, those guys, but for me just to be there and all three of us be able to talk a lot of stuff. To the virtual Bass University audience, which I don't think we're planning on doing that forever. We want to get back in the classroom, be hands-on with the students, just like we always used to do. As soon as we get through all the COVID stuff, we will be back doing that, and hopefully we'll be back up to Mississauga. That was a really fun time. Let's see what else we got here. My buddy Ned says, love the tan lines and the beer, the eye tan lines. Yes, I have been out on the water the last few days. Will you be attending the weigh-in February 6th on the home turf of, he's talking about Three Forks Marsh, which is literally right behind my house. I'm going to try to get over there for sure. It's, as far as I know, it's going to be the first organized tournament on Three Forks. I'm sure there's been a club tournament or something over there, but this is going to be like the first organized tournament. I do have scheduled to film a TV show that day. It's one of my episodes of The Fishing Show with JT Kenney. It's on MOTV. I do have scheduled for that, but hopefully if the fish cooperate and we get that episode shot, I'm going to slide over there and hopefully see how everybody doing out there on Three Forks. Let's see, what else do we have here? Spencer says, Hey, Adam or Eddie, have you done any backwoods hiking in the inland small trout lakes yet for ice?
uh, I've done a little bit. I was actually up north around Christmas time, and I did some of that. But yeah, it was decent. It was good fishing. We were fishing splake again, but they were all small splake at the time. But yeah, just a little bit Spence.
So I take well, I know this, but I want you to talk about it for the fans. But so the smaller lakes freeze quicker and get safe much quicker, correct?
100%. Yeah, most guys first ice. I mean, they're going to be out fishing the back trout lakes, for brook trout, rainbows, uh, lake trout when they open. Whenever the trout season opens, which in our area most lakes is January 1st, and splake and stuff like that. So yeah, it's your safest bet, and people just want to get out there and drill a hole and get fishing.
No, once it's starting to get too cold to get the boat out there and stuff starts to freeze up, you immediately kind of want to
Oh,
uh,
100%. Yeah.
transition over to the ice. So in that little interim in there, I would imagine that's about the time hunting season's in. So you get to do a little bit of hunting and then go right into as soon as hunting season's over, you go right out onto the ice. I would imagine that would be a pretty cool little segue to be able to go through there. So what other kind of stuff we talked about? Trying to stick. I got very sidetracked. Um, but I want to hear a little bit about. You said in Quebec you're actually allowed to target bass through the ice.
Yep. Yeah.
What kind of techniques? What kind of baits do you use through the ice to target bass?
Um. So first things first. Anybody that hasn't fished bass through the ice or understand like bass when the water gets really cold, they are freaking lethargic. Like they barely move. And like I'll talk about smallmouth quickly and then go to largemouth. But smallmouth in Quebec, the lakes are barely pressured. Like Americans would lose it to know how good the fishing is if they came up to Quebec and actually just spent a day fishing because like they're untouched. There's tons of untouched lakes. You look on a map, it'd be the crappiest map out there. You find the only hump. And if it's a lake with not a lot of structure, you might have every single smallmouth on that hump in the wintertime. And you know, baits wise, bass in the wintertime, they tend to love really small baits. Like you don't typically get them on great big huge spoons. You can. I'm not saying it's not going to happen, like on a big blade bait or a big spoon. But for smallmouth, most popular, hands down, a bait like the turnback shad, which is a little glide bait. You don't need bait. You don't need anything. All you got to do is do small little hops and subtle shakes, and you're just going to watch smallmouth come in all day long and inhale that thing. They absolutely love it. So for smallmouth, I mean, they're super easy to catch. It's actually not popular to fish bass because I almost think it's too easy. Largemouth, though, on the other hand, yeah, largemouth on the other hand is a whole nother ball game. Most of the time, not too many guys really target them, but you'll catch them when you're fishing panfish, bluegill, crappie, using tiny little diamond like jigs, like your 1/32 ounce stuff you use for crappie and bluegill and that, and they love that stuff. They absolutely love it. It like you could set up tip ups all around you with minnows on still lines, and you're gonna catch them on those little diamond jigs. You'll watch them come in so slow, they nose up to the bait, and they just sit there forever. And you're just sitting there shaking the bait, and then they just inhale it. And you know, it's a little irrelevant, but 2 years ago, my partner and I, Kyle, we went to the Bassmaster Team Championship at Lake Hartwell. And of course, we go to Lake Hartwell in December, and we brought the cold with us. It was below freezing temps, and ends up on the second day. It was one of the biggest bags a lot of guys, locals had seen, caught at Hartwell in December in years. It was 27 pounds.
Wow.
The fish were so off, largemouth were so off, they caught them on crappie jigs. You know, they caught them on freaking crappie jigs, and it kind of reminded me of back home, just like when you get those crazy cold fronts come through, and ice fishing largemouth, they're eating like those tiny little baits. So
wow, that's that's 27 pounds. That's big.
it's big, yeah, it's big for Hartwell.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's big anywhere. Much less for Hartwell. Hartwell's not one of the lakes not really known for great big bags, but it's one of the things that like I could relate to what we do down here in Florida in the wintertime when we get a cold front. Which obviously, a cold front down here, everything being relative, is a little bit different. We talk about a massive cold front down here when it gets in the low 40s or high 30s.
Yeah, you're lucky.
Right, but it's still, you know what I mean? The fish still act the same way, everything being relative. It's a cold-blooded creature. So they still get lethargic, still act the same way. But, we have all the grass mats and stuff down here, and whether it's hyacinth or whatever. And so many times when we get these big cold fronts that come through, those fish will bury up underneath that stuff. And a lot of people say they bury up underneath that stuff because the sun warms that stuff up quicker. I don't buy that. I think fish gets pressured, whether it's from fishing pressure, whether it's from a barometric pressure change, whether it's from a temperature change. When a fish just feels funky, a largemouth bass, he likes to go get in something. Just get in heavy cover, whatever he can find. He just likes to get in it. Well, down here in Florida, we have these big matted areas of vegetation. We'll use very, very small baits with a heavy weight, so you can poke down through it. But very, very small baits. The net bait dagger is one of the things that is just an amazing bait for that. But it's the same thing you're talking about. Obviously, I'm not talking about going as small as a crappie jig. But we go a lot smaller and a lot slimmer profile, stuff like that, than the baits that we would typically use, in a cold front situation. And if you are in a lake, there's some lakes down here that don't have a lot of that kind of stuff, the matted stuff. And then when we get on those lakes in a cold front situation, we'll go to light fluorocarbon line. And believe it or not, most people don't realize, but we'll throw Ned rigs down here during cold front situations, and it works. It works really well. It's like, instead of throwing, the 15-inch C-Mac or a 7-inch T-Mac worm from net bait, like we'll go to that little. I like to throw a little net bait salt and cut it in half, or I'll use the Set the Hook. Is it the Dead Quiver from Set the Hook?
Yeah.
I'll use that too. Either one. I'll use the net bait salt lick. I can cut it down to the exact size I want. And if I want the really little one, like I said, I'll use that Set the Hook Dead Quiver, that little Ned rig type bait. Using just a popular term, a little Ned rig type bait. It works, and it's these diminutive little things, but I mean they actually work when fish get. And like I said, pressure can be anything. It can be angling pressure, it can be barometric pressure, it can be anything that just gets the fish in a funk.
Yeah,
that could be. So here's a pretty good question. We're kind of starting to run out of time here, but here's a pretty good question. Let's hit this, Adam. Tony says, how do cold fronts and bad weather affect the fish when ice fishing? Just wonder if it helps or hurts.
it depends what you're fishing. Like walleye. I mean, even when you're not ice fishing. First off, like some of my best days ice fishing walleye are the windiest days on the ice. It's got to be a barometric pressure that's coming through that they feel, and that's the only way I can explain it. But obviously there's no waves or there's no chop on the water. It's just that system coming through, and those fish are getting fired up. And then when you talk about lake trout, preferably myself, I like a bluebird sky, sunny day. I want a nice bright day, calm weather, and I find they're fired up then. But I mean, it's fishing. Like I've tried to pattern things a million times over, and most of the times you're right going with a certain pattern, but then sometimes you just go out there and it just doesn't happen. Just doesn't happen. But bad weather, walleye, you can't beat it. Like it's go time, and preferably try and get there the day before the bad weather, and that's when you're going to have your best bite, as that barometric pressure is either dropping, and sometimes even when the barometric pressure goes through the roof, you'll get a crazy walleye bite too.
Wow. Cool. Let me ask you this, and we touched on this either last week or 2 weeks ago. We touched on this, but through the ice, is there still that typical early morning and late evening kind of feeding time, like around sunrise and sunset?
100%. Yeah, it depends what you fish. Like if I'm fishing splake and lake trout, best bite to me is always between 9 and 3 or 10 and 2, midday. Walleye, I can't tell you how many days I've spent out there to fish for a 1 hour bite in the morning and a 1 hour bite in the evening. And you sit there all day. And that's why I said earlier, I love a place where I could drill a hole and I can catch lake trout and walleye out of the same hole, because when the walleye are off, the lake trout come in, they start feeding. And then when the lake trout are done, you're back into the walleye.
But you're changing your technique a little bit for that, right? Like,
yeah, 100%.
Most of the time, walleye are a little bit closer to the bottom. Most of the time, lake trout typically are kind of mid-column.
They could be anywhere. They could be right below the ice. They could be on bottom. They could be mid-column. It's whatever they prefer that day or that moment.
Yeah, that's crazy. That so here Tony says he says that was my next question, if wind affects it at all. That's the only thing, just like what Adam said. That's the only thing I could really think, Tony, is because obviously there's no wind. It's not putting any diamond, if you will, on the water. You know what I mean? But it would be that barometric pressure change and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, my buddy Ned said bass don't like the cold. Florida bass don't like the cold, but they love a dagger. That is correct. They absolutely do. We actually caught some today on a dagger, which kind of goes to show you that it's fishing is you can have the Bass Fishing Manual, Chapter 7, Verse 4, Subchapter 8.4 clearly states this is what they should be doing. And we went fishing today, and it's almost full moon. It's really warm. We've had a whole lot of cool temperatures down here in the Palm Bay area. All of our lakes, the water temperature was down in the 50s, which for down here is fairly cool. Last 4 or 5 days, it's really warmed up. Today it was in the 80s. Yesterday it almost got to 80. Water temperature has came up like 10 degrees, 11 degrees in the last couple of days. We're on full moon. I thought out there the last 2 days that they were going to be trying to jump in the boat to get their picture taken. Like, I really thought it was going to be like that. I thought there was going to be fish on beds everywhere. We caught fish, don't get me wrong. But the best technique we had today was punching back. What? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Zero.
Yeah, you gotta let the fish tell you. You gotta let them tell you.
If you read the Bass Fishing Manual, you should be, buzzing big spankies and big boppers through the scattered hydrilla flats catching spawners. You know what I mean? It's January. It's a full moon. It's a warming trend. They're going to the bed. That's what's going to happen. There was a few. I'm not going to say there wasn't any. There was a few. But the guys that I took fishing today, I was telling, they're from Maryland. I was telling them, it's going to be epic. We're going to go through 40 bags of big boppers today. It's going to be crazy. Nah, we caught some nice fish, and we didn't catch a whole bunch, but we caught 20 or 25. That's right. Most of them came punching highest and max. So it's like, it's just some days it's just crazy. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it is what it is. It's fishing. But that's one of the things, that makes us keep coming back. So, Tony says, thank you guys for the great info. Hey, Tony, we really appreciate you. We really appreciate you coming along. He's got one more here. Can you say the sight fishing in headwaters is going to be off the chain for the next month? I would think so. Tony, just like what we were just talking about, I really thought today, because it's getting cold again tomorrow. We're right on the moon. It's been this massive warm up. I wasn't impressed with the sight fishing today on Headwaters. Like I said, we ended up catching some nice ones, punching maps, but it wasn't so. But here's the thing about Headwaters. Nobody's fished it in the spawn yet. Like we fish, of course, the kayakers have access to the upper part, which I'm going to refer to as the side farm part. It was an old sod farm, or that's what I was told. It was an old sod farm. So they had access to that area. But as far as the whole enhanced area, the whole southern 2/3 of the lake, we don't know what they do down there yet. I mean, I'm assuming they're going to be laying in craters everywhere in the next 3 or 4 or 5 weeks. But I mean, like we don't know yet. But that's like that's the freaking cool thing about it. Like we don't know what's going to happen there. So it's gonna be pretty awesome, man. So we got one more from Christopher, then we're gonna have to wrap it up. JT, you got to get to, is it Nipissing? Is that how that was?
Nipissing.
Yeah. Nipissing. Okay. Largemouth, smallmouth, walleye, muskie, more. I'm in. I would have been up there this year. I had plans to fish the Thousand Islands Open and all kinds of stuff up there, and hopefully this year everything will get straightened out and we'll be able to have a little bit better access to getting across the border and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, Adam, we are fresh out of time. Actually, we ran over a little bit. We're out of time. I appreciate everybody being here, asking all the questions. We love when you guys come on American Bait Works Live, and just ask us anything about ice fishing, bass fishing. You can even ask hunting, whatever you want to talk about. We're here at American Bait Works Live. If you go to American Bait Works and you're looking for anything we talked about tonight, you can use the code Kenney ABW, or I'm sure you probably have the same code. Adam, do you? Adam ABW, or it'd be Howell ABW. I'm sure you probably do. But if you want to go there, check out any of that stuff. If you use that code Kenney ABW, you get a discount. Like I said, Adam, congratulations on Team of the Year in the Renegade Bass Trail. Congratulations on only letting Lenny beat you in the Classic.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, what a great year, man! You guys absolutely smoked everybody. Winning Angler of the Year and second in the Classic. I mean, it's just absolutely amazing. So, but Adam, thanks so much for being here. Thank everybody else for being here, commenting. We will see everybody on the next American Bait Works Live next Wednesday night, 6 p.m. Don't miss it. Thanks, everybody.